Good evening and happy Friday. It's almost the weekend. We are going to start a new book today called The Family Under the Bridge by Natalie Savage Carlson. This book was a Newbery Honor winner, and well, I wanted to tell you the copyright date is 1958. So we are going to go ahead and get started. It's a fun book. I actually started reading it to a group of kids when they were here at the library about a year ago, but didn't get a chance to finish it. And I was hoping that maybe more of you might be interested who weren't able to get started with us. So this is going to be a great book. I hope you guys like it. We'll start with chapter 1. Here is the first picture. I'll put it up to the screen there. This book takes place in France, I believe. Once there was an old hobo named Armand who wouldn't have lived anywhere but in Paris. So that is where he lived. Everything that he owned could be pushed around in an old baby buggy without any hood, so he had no worries about rent or burglars. All the ragged clothing he owned was on his back, so he didn't need to bother with trunks or dry cleaners. It was easy for him to move from one hidey hole to another, so that is what he was doing one late morning in December. It was a cold day with the gray sky hanging on the very chimney pots of Paris. But Armand did not mind because he had a tickly feeling that something new and exciting was going to happen to him today. He hummed a gay tune to himself as he pushed his buggy through the flower market at the side of Notre Dame Cathedral. The flowers reminded him that someday it would be spring, even though it wasn't a bad winter yet. There were pots of fragile hyacinths and tulips crowded together on planks in front of the stalls. There were pink carnations and oleanders in great tin pails. Most of all, there were bouquets of red beaded holly, clumps of white pearled mistletoe, and little green fir trees because it would soon be Christmas. Armand's keen eye caught sight of a pile of broken branches and wilted flowers swept away from one stall. Annabelle was the name written all over the stall, and Armand touched his black beret to the stocky woman whose blue work apron hung below her woolly coat. "By your leave, and in gratitude for your generosity, madame," he said to the woman who was surely Annabelle. He piled the broken branches on top of his belongings in the baby buggy. Then he fastidiously picked a sprig of dried holly from the litter and pulled it through his torn buttonhole. He wanted to look his best for whatever gay adventure was waiting for him this day. The woman who must have been Annabelle, only frowned at Armand as he trudged his buggy toward the Rue de Course. Past the ancient buildings he shuffled, his buggy headed for the far branch of the Seine River. But as he entered the square in front of Notre Dame, a hand grasped his arm from behind. "Your fortune, monsieur," wheedled a musical voice. "You will meet with adventure today." Armand let go of the handle of the buggy and whirled around to face a gypsy woman in a short fur coat and full flowered skirt. He gave her a gap-toothed smile. "You, Mirelli," he greeted her. Your people are back in Paris for the winter?" The gypsy woman's dark face beamed under the blue scarf. "Doesn't one always spend the winters in Paris?" she asked, as if she were a woman of fashion. "But have you taken to the streets so early?" Armand shrugged his shoulders under the long overcoat that almost reached to his ankles. "It's back under the bridge for me," he answered. "I've had enough of the crowded corners and tight alleys in the place Maubert, and I'm tired of sorting rags for that junk dealer. I'm ready for that adventure you're promising me." Mirelli could understand. "That courtyard we rent seems like a cage after the freedom of the long, winding roads," she said, "but the men have found plenty of work for the winter. A city with as many restaurants as Paris has more than enough pots and pans to be mended." So the rest of the gypsy men like to mend the pots and pans for work. "Of course the children can talk of nothing but the fields and woods of spring. They don't want to hang out in Paris for the winter." "I can't abide children," grumped Armand. "Starlings they are, witless, tittering like pests." Mirelli shook her finger at him. "You think you don't like children," she said, but it is only that you are afraid of them. You're afraid the sly little things will steal your heart if they find out you have one. Armand grunted and took the handle of the buggy again. Mirelli waved him away, swaying on bare feet, squeezed into tarnished silver sandals. If you change your mind about the bridge, you can come and live with us, she invited. We're beyond the Hales, where they're tearing down the buildings near the old Court of Miracles. Armand tramped under the black leafless trees and around the cathedral by the riverside without even giving it a glance. In the green park behind the flying buttresses, some street urchins were loitering. Excuse me. I have a tickle in my throat and my eye is watering because of it as I keep reading. They stopped their play. Oh, the boys. Two of them played at dueling, while a third smaller one watched, munching a red apple. The swordsmen, holding out imaginary swords, circled each other. Closer and closer came the clenched fists. Then the boys forgot their imaginary swords and began punching each other. They stopped their play as Armand went by. Look at the funny old tramp, one cried to his playmates. Armand looked around because he wanted to see the funny old tramp too. It must be that droll Louis, with his tall black hat and baggy pants. Then he realized that he was the funny old tramp. Keep your civil tongue in your head, starling, he ordered. He fingered the holly in his lapel. If you don't, I'll tell my friend Father Christmas about your rude manners. Then you'll get nothing but a bunch of sticks, like these on my buggy. The boys looked at him in awe. Father Christmas is the Santa Claus of France. He rides down from the north on his little gray donkey and leaves presents for good children. The small boy held out his half-eaten apple. Are you hungry, monsieur? He asked. Would you like the rest of this apple? But the biggest boy mockingly punched the air with his fist. Pooh, he scoffed. There's no Father Christmas. He's just make-believe. If you doubt my word, said Armand with dignity, just take a look in the Louvre store. You'll find him on the mezzanine floor. He grinned like one of the roguish gargoyles on the cathedral. There really was a Father Christmas, and it was his friend Camille, who felt the urge to work when the weather turned cold. I believe you, monsieur, said the boy with an apple. I saw Father Christmas outside the store yesterday. He was eating hot chestnuts on the street. Armand hunched his shoulders and quickly walked toward the bridge. Mirelli was right. These starlings would steal your heart if you didn't keep it well hidden, and he wanted nothing to do with children. They meant homes and responsibility and regular work, all the things that he had turned his back on so long ago, and he was looking for an adventure. Down a few blocks was the bridge under which he lived when the weather wasn't too raw, and plenty of company he had during the summer with all the homeless of Paris staking their claims to this space or that. But first I must have dinner, he told himself, looking up at the restaurant across the street. He licked his thumb and held it up. The wind is just right, he decided. So he parked his buggy beside the low wall and settled himself in the breeze that came from the restaurant. He pulled all the kitchen smells deep into his lungs. Ah, steak broiled over charcoal, he gloated, and the sauce is just right, but they scorched the potatoes. For 2 hours, Armand sat on the curb enjoying the food smells, because that is the length of time a Frenchman allows himself for lunch in the middle of the day. Then he daintily wiped his whiskered lips with his cuff and rose to his knobby shoes. Just keep the change, waiter, he said generously, although there wasn't a white uniformed waiter in sight. You'll need it for Christmas. He started down the steps that dropped from the street to the quay beside the Seine. He bounced the back wheels of the buggy down each step. I am really quite stuffed, he told himself, but I wish I had taken that apple. It would have been the right dessert after such a rich sauce. So did he really eat dinner? He just was sitting outside the restaurant and enjoyed the smells of what the food was inside. But he didn't actually get to eat anything, did he? Down the quay, he pushed the buggy toward the bridge tunnel that ran along the shore. On the cobbled quay, a man was washing his car with the free Seine water from the river Seine. A woman in the fur coat was airing her French poodle. A long barge, sleek as a black seal, slid through the river. It was like coming home after a long absence, thought Armand, and anything exciting could happen under a Paris bridge. As he neared the tunnel, his eyes widened with surprise and anger. A gray canvas was propped over the niche that had always been his own, and a market pushcart was parked by the pillar. He raced his buggy across the cobblestones toward the arch. When he arrived there, he reached up and angrily tore down the canvas with one swoop of his arm, and then he jumped back in surprise and horror. "Oh la la!" he cried. "Starlings! A nest full of them!" Because 3 startled children, snuggled up into a worn quilt, looked up at him with eyes as surprised as his own. The little girl and the boy cowered deeper into the quilt, but the older girl quickly jumped to her feet. She had direct blue eyes, and they matched her determined chin and snub nose and bright red hair. "You can't take us away," she cried, clenching her fists. "We're going to stay together because we're a family, and families have to stick together. That's what Mama says." That is the end of chapter 1 for today. So we will continue with the story on Monday and see what happens next with the children that Armand has found. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Bye.